Welcome to Raised on D&D podcast. Each month, Raised on D&D brings you inspirational interviews with tips and strategies to enrich your family's gaming experience. Your host for Raised on D&D has been a game master for 30 years and father to 3 gamers. Here is Nick Cardarelli.
Welcome back, gamers. I'm your host, Nick Cardarelli, and this is Raised on D&D. My 2 guests today are from Cincinnati, Ohio, a creator of the Boundless gaming system and the Everlore campaign setting. Both are stars of the Everlore game streaming on Twitch. Please welcome David Thompson and Uriah Bordeneau. Hey, guys.
Hey. Thanks for having us.
Oh, thanks for being on the show today. I've been watching the YouTube episodes of the Twitch stream. Very, very cool. Very excited. David, now what I really liked about the Everlore game show, it's your sons. Is that your dad in the show too?
No. I actually have my 2 sons and my brother.
Oh, it's your brother. Okay.
He's my older brother. And then and then there are just 2 other great guys who joined. They started out as testers, and then from there they just really dived in, and I love their energy. So they're on the stream.
Okay, awesome. So David, tell us a little bit about how you started playing D&D or tabletop role-playing games.
I guess thinking back, my very first experience, I was probably about 15 years old, and a friend of mine, his name was Colin Lang, and he was really big into this stuff. So he said, hey, you got to try this out, and I was totally down with it. I went over his house on a Saturday. We played for probably about 4 or 5 hours, and then when my parents came to pick me up, well, that day I had a migraine. And so when I got in the car, I wasn't feeling well. Well, both of my parents are ministers. And so they were like thinking that we were casting spells and summoning the devil and stuff like that. So they were like, you can't ever play that again. And so honestly, I didn't play again until after I was grown and out of the house.
So what time period is this, David? Is it in the 80s? Is it during the Satanic Panic?
Yeah, well, it was probably around the 90s, right around there. And it's just, my parents, they have never been into this kind of thing,
Right.
And so I was sort of unique of my brothers and sisters because I was an artist. And so I loved fantasy stuff. And so I was always dreaming. Whereas, my other brothers and sisters, they were into sort of what, the everyday thing. So I was that odd kid out. And so they were just a little unsure of what I was, I guess, So they just wanted to make sure I wasn't sort of going to the dark side.
Yeah. Fast forward, you're grown, you're out of the house, and you come back to gaming. How does that happen?
I honestly, my dreams led me back. I always have these wonderful dreams, and they're very cinematic. And when I wake up, I write down my dreams and stuff like that. I've always read fantasy books, and I started going when I was at the Art Academy in Cincinnati. I met a group of kids there who also gamed, and so I gamed with them just for a little bit. Then after that, you come and go in different groups, and so probably about 6 months during that time I gamed. Years later, I started gaming with a different group, because people just move and things like that. And honestly, I've probably had just, a total of like 2, maybe 3 years tops in actual gaming. Mm-hmm. The rest has been sort of figuring out what I didn't like about what I saw and thinking, okay, if I were to create something, how would it look differently?
Awesome. We're going to unpack that more. Uriah, how did you get into tabletop role-playing games and D&D?
I don't know, maybe my sophomore year in high school, I want to say. I went to a friend's house and they were like, hey, let's play D&D or something. And I was like, what is that? And we played, and it was an interesting experience. I didn't get along with the dungeon master. So it was definitely not good on my end.
Shocking.
I know, right? It's crazy. No, the dungeon master and I were friends. It was just, it wasn't a lot of like player agency. So like I didn't understand the rules and like what was going on. And so then I took like a 2-year break. Like every time someone was like, hey, let's play D&D, I was like, nah, or let's play, something. I was like, I'm okay. Until 2 years later, my friend, Jacob Knox, he's in the Navy now. But he was like, hey man, I'm running a session. Just come check it out. It'd mean a lot to me. So I was like, all right, I got you. I'll show up. And I had a blast. And ever since then, I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like, why have I not been doing this? Like, you know what I mean? But yeah, that was how it was.
A lot of people don't understand that the game master really sets the tempo for the game, and it can make the biggest difference. And I talk to people all the time who are like, I tried it, I hated it. I'm like, come back, try it with a different game master. Sometimes it's a personality thing. Sometimes it's a creative thing. Some game masters, they try to put you in a box and they don't let you really create, which is the whole point of the game. And David, you had mentioned that you had experienced that too, being put in a box, not being allowed to create. And that was kind of some of the inspiration of making your own game. Well, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, there were a couple things. Like I said, when, growing up, I was always into fantasy, and, I read a lot of like Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance, and, it was great. But as I got older, I realized I was never able to really see anybody that looked like me. Sort of the idea of diversity in those books was if you were like brunette or redhead, or, if you had blue eyes or green eyes. And whenever they did have, a character of color, it was always from some far off land, and you would maybe only see one of them. And so I thought, maybe this is just in the books. But then there was a time that I was gaming at a local university. And I came in, I was very excited. I just found this new group, and, we sat down and we started writing up our characters. So I created a character that I really liked. And during the first session, they asked us all to describe us, introduce yourselves. And so I introduced my character. He's handsome, brown skin. Yeah, I looked in the mirror for this. And I was just talking about him. And then as soon as I was done, the GM was like, "Well, you can't play a black character because they don't exist here. They're from someplace down." And he said that there was a place where black characters were, but that just couldn't exist here. And it was just, it told me right then that I wasn't, accepted as that. I had to become another. And so, I was thinking, surely I can't be the only person of color who loves fantasy and who wants to see themselves in this. And so that was sort of the impetus for me to really start thinking, well, if I can't see it, maybe I can create it.
And that's fantastic. But what really shocks me is, and it might be shocking for a lot of people who are listening, it's 2020. You open up the player's handbook for D&D from Wizards of the Coast, and under human is an African-American female to represent the entire human race.
Wow.
So for a lot of gamers now, your story is a little surprising. Okay. But it wasn't always that way, and it wasn't always that way a very short time ago.
Yeah.
So talking about inclusivity and diversity in the role-playing game community is kind of a hot topic now, but it wasn't. It definitely wasn't 20 years ago when we started gaming, right? So that's very incredible. Now, I always hear horror stories about game masters all the time, okay? I listen to them constantly. Well, and one of the things that always bothers me is game masters who put their setting or their story ahead of the players and their characters.
Yeah.
You guys are the players are the stars of the game, right?
Yes.
Why in the world wouldn't you say, oh, your character traveled from that distant land anything that would have allowed it. But because of that box that a lot of game masters live in, could not get out of it. But the consequence of that is you were inspired to create an entire new game system and a new setting, and that's really amazing. Uriah, did you ever experience anything similar to what David is talking about with your gaming experiences?
Like I said, the first gaming experience that I had in terms of the tabletop role-playing games, I did kind of feel a bit boxed in. I was definitely like, what do I do? And so it created this sort of like rebellion, you know what I mean? Like where I wanted to rebel against the dungeon master, the game master. And so that was just my goal every time we met. And like, I didn't like it. Like at first it was like, I'm making a point, but after a while it was just like, this isn't even fun anymore.
Right.
And so when I did come across something like this, where I was like, oh, I can make my own story. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, this is awesome. I can be who I want to be and do what I want to do. And that was the whole point of me playing the game in the first place, right? I'm immersing myself into a fantasy world to do what I want to do. I just want to see what happens, you know? So, yeah.
Awesome. And David, we already talked about you're a dad. How many children do you have?
I have two sons. They're 12 and 15, and they've grown up listening to me talk about this world that I'm creating one day. I mean, honestly, I've been working on this longer than they've been alive, and so it's one of the joys of my life that they're of an age now where they can actually participate in this. And they feel like they have ownership of it because they do.
Well, how old were they when you first introduced them to tabletop role playing? That sort of just happened organically. And we were just, they would sit and watch me create characters. They would sit and watch me do drawings. And that's actually where it started is, they would see me drawing all the time. And, they would say, "Ooh, could you do a drawing like this?" And a lot, at that time they were really into anime, and this was, when they were around 8 and stuff like that. And so they would, say, draw Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever the anime of the moment was, and I would say, "No, I'm making something new," and they would say, "Oh, well, okay, then here, why don't you make this?" And so my oldest son, David, he wanted me to come up with some kind of creature that was half shadow, half lava, and that's all he knew at the time. And so I said, okay, well, let's figure this out. So I sat them down and I worked them through the process that I go through. What does it really look like? Where does it live? What does it do? What does it eat? And so through that, we came up with the Hiroshim, and they're one of the cool creatures in our world. And then my youngest son, I guess not to be outdone, he was like, well, let's make something to do with blood. And, he's 2 years younger, 2.5 years younger. So, his idea was so innocent at the time, but, he wanted it to be, sort of like a monster that, would suck the blood and all this stuff. So working through that, we came up with the idea of the blood trolls, and so, we wrote it up and then I actually drew it. And so now when they look in the Monsters Menagerie, they can see the monsters that they had, part in creating. So it's just great. And that's beautiful. And so Everlore becomes the whole family contributing and being a part of it. Uriah, do you have any children of your own yet?
Hopefully not. I don't know. Yeah. No, I don't have any children of my own, but I do play with family, extended family, stuff like that. But yeah.
And you co-star on the show with David's sons. So seeing that dynamic between David and his sons and his brother and making it a family thing, how's that make you feel?
It's sort of a heartwarming experience, just to kind of be a part of it and see this sort of idea come to life, and then also see that this idea that he was so passionate about be shared with a lot of the people that he's closest to, like his sons and his brother and things of that. It's kind of like, wow, this is kind of cool to be able to see someone in their passion and see them enjoy it with people they love. It's a really cool feeling.
And one of the things that I really like about it is that these guys, I love them to death because they took something that I had as a passion, and they internalized it. You know what I'm saying? And so they bring energy, they bring ideas, and they're helping to take, this little ball of an idea that I had into a whole realm, and so I just think that's great.
David, before we jump into Everlore and its background and all that other stuff, I just want to say how much I really enjoy the Twitch streaming show. I was watching it today, and Uriah, you kind of are like the bard at the beginning of every session. You're like doing the recap, like last time on Everlore.
Yep.
And so you give me a little recap. I was able to get caught up on what was going on.
Yes.
And then and I gotta ask, the young man who looks like maybe your youngest son's friend.
Anthony. Yep.
What's his name?
I think his name's Anthony.
Anthony. Yeah, Anthony.
Yeah.
So Anthony, is he doing a British accent or is he British?
He is doing a British accent.
He is doing it. Okay.
Or
Australian.
Australian.
This is what he was going for.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny because when we first developed these characters, he just came up with that voice.
Yeah.
And we were thinking, okay, he's playing an Elon, and an Elon is basically like an 8 foot tall black guy, and he's coming around. He lived with dwarves, and all this stuff. But for some reason, he has this accent, which is great, and we love it. But that's just his uniqueness that he's bringing into it.
Yep.
That is amazing. That's fantastic. Because I was like, I know they're in Cincinnati. I'm like, so. So David, tell us about Everlore for the folks who haven't gotten into it yet. Okay. I know that the boundless game system is incredible. It's classless and it's levelless. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about that.
So basically, our sort of our elevator pitch is Everlore is an innovative tabletop RPG that promotes diversity and inclusion, but it is also classless and levelless. So what I did when I was thinking about this is I thought, okay, what are some of the things that I enjoy about some of the games I've played in the past, and what are some of the things that I thought were too restrictive? It just felt like whenever, you would, whether you were playing a ranger or whatever, as you guys got up in your experience and your levels, it basically all became the same character. You would have some tiny shades of difference, but they were all essentially the same. And so I was thinking, what's real life like? In real life, I walk down the street and I don't know what you are. I can't say if you're a cop or, if you're a pharmacist or anything like that just by looking at you. So I wanted to create a game that was sort of had the feel of more real life. And so the game is it's a point-buy system, and you gain EP, that's experience, as you're going through the different things. And you don't gain experience based on combat. You gain experience based on gameplay. And so, like, when you were talking about those recaps that Uriah is good at, that's actually one way for me as the lore master to award experience to all the group. Mm-hmm. And so at the beginning of it, I asked them all, hey, who wants to earn EP? It's just Uriah happens to be kind of greedy.
Hey, so you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, okay?
That's right. But yeah, so that way we can continue to build your character based on the game. One of the things that you said earlier about how, the game should be about the player. And this one is that the world, we've put a lot of lore into the world, but we were careful enough to leave vast swaths of the world uninhabited, unexplored, things like that, so that you as your own lore master can, create your own little society in this corner of it. And that way you can feel like you have ownership of this too.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I like that too. I like a rich setting, a rich campaign setting that gives you some details, really gives you some backstory into maybe the kingdoms and the races and the religions and all that, but then gives you this framework or this outline and says, okay, now what can you do with it?
Yes.
That is where I feel game masters buy into your campaign setting, because again, you're not putting them in a box. You're letting them be creative with your rich, beautiful setting and saying, hey, every little inch of this hex map hasn't been mapped out, explored, and detailed. That's wonderful. I think that's a great way to present a campaign setting. With Everlore, I was looking at it on Amazon today, and I was looking through Travelers.
Yes.
The Traveler's Compendium.
Yeah, the Traveler's Compendium, similar to how there's a player's handbook in D&D. The Traveler's Compendium basically holds all the information down to the races, the playable races, and like things that the cultures, and I mean even down to weaponry, armors, proficiencies, skills, spells, like literally everything that you need to know to play the game. If you want to just jump in and play it, Traveler's Compendium all day, you know?
Okay.
So what we've done is, through the first phase of this, we released 5 core books. And we have Inception, that's the origins of Mythandria. So it basically explains to you how the realm came to be. How the deities that are now the Pantheon, how they actually didn't even begin in this realm, but they came here through some circumstances, and it just shows you how that was created. It's a 20 or 30 page, actually it's like 22-page booklet, and it just gives you a brief introduction into the realm. Then there is Thy Kingdoms Come, and that highlights 10 of the primary kingdoms of Midian, and Midian is the central continent on Mythandria where the first products will be placed.
Okay.
So Thy Kingdom Comes talks about some of the kingdoms, but it also talks about some of the factions that you may get involved with, like the Brotherhood of Justice or the Resurrected and things like that.
Okay.
Then we also have the Traveler's Compendium, like Uriah talked about. We have the Chronicler's Delight, which is a book that's set aside for the lore masters. And it just gives some more behind-the-scenes information about different races that even some of those races may not really realize about themselves. And then lastly, we have the Monsters Menagerie.
It's the big boy.
Yeah. and that has about 200 different creatures in there. Some from the mundane. We got dogs and cats and stuff like that. But they're a little bit beefier in Mythandria than in other realms. So be careful.
Yeah.
But then, we have our, different types of dragons and, the standard things. But we also have a section in there called Beings of Power. And that just talks about some of the more unique individuals that you may encounter.
Oh, so like almost like a non-player character compendium in there as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. So these are famous characters that you might run into.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that because whenever I'm running any kind of role-playing game, really, I love throwing in a cameo from a named character from a named setting, right? You were talking about Forgotten Realms earlier. I was doing a mashup for my children during our 2-year campaign, made sure that, hey, if you're going to get captured by Drow, guess who's going to be captured in there with you?
Right.
Yeah.
There's Driz, and what was great was the kid didn't know who he was. So there's this whole discussion between the players at the table of, hey, he's a dark elf too. Should we trust him? Because they didn't know he was a hero. So they do this, and then after the campaign was over, they kind of see him in some art, and they go, hey, that's the guy who helped us. Prison, right? So,
that's right.
So I love so your setting already comes with some NPCs that I can put in, have cameos with, or be sent on missions from. That's fantastic too. So it's really well thought out. It's very rich. I'm looking at it at manchildlimited.com Everlore campaign. And I just want to read this line because I really, really like it. I really like how it's written. Let me read it. Methandria, also known as the Jewel of the Shadow Sea, lies at the very heart of the realm of Everlore and is where your character will either rise to great heights or fall to utter ruin.
Yes.
That's just incredible. I read that line and I went, man, I got to play in this game.
Hey, I love it.
I got to play this. So they can find out about it on the website at manchildltd.com/Everlore, right?
Yeah.
They can watch you guys play it on Twitch. So you guys are you're the Cincinnati Critical Role, aren't you?
Yeah, we're trying to.
We're trying.
Yeah, we're getting started, but we're going to get there.
So we just need a comic book and then a cartoon, right?
Yes. We're working on those things.
There's a lot of great skills and lessons and things like that you can learn from tabletop role-playing games. What are some of the things that you hope to pass on to your sons with this experience of playing Everlore around the table?
That's a good question. One of the things that I want to teach my kids and, really any kid that's watching is that you can really do anything. Too often society tells children of color, particularly, boys, you got to grow up to be a rapper, a sports figure, a drug dealer, or whatever. But, it's very rare that they see themselves in a positive light. And, I want my sons to know that, they should have the ability to dream about the future in a positive way. I want them to feel like, they can see themselves as a hero, as intelligent, as valued members of society, because that's what they are. It's just too often they don't see it, and I'm hoping to be able to model that in my life so that kids who are watching us, because my day job, I'm an educator, and so I want even the kids at school, I talk to them about, my drawings and stuff like that, because I want them to understand that, if you put hard work and dedication into something, you can achieve your dreams. And I tell my boys all the time, while I believe this will be successful, there's a chance it won't be, but I know it won't be if I don't try. And so that's what I want them to do.
And that's beautiful, because that is a message that I think everybody needs to hear, even guys our age.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Working in this, like I said, I've been working on this for years, and there were people along the way who said, you can't do this. You know what I'm saying? You can't draw well enough. And I've done all the artwork. You can't write well enough. I've done all the writing. You can't create a world. Look, we did. But what I found is that I couldn't do this on my own. I had to have people, while I did have those negatives, I had other people who were saying, you can do this, who were pouring that positive vibe into me. And then, it really just shot, like springboarded when we got these testers together, because these guys who came alongside, they were all in. And, they were thinking, that we had already achieved it, and so I was just like, okay, well then I definitely have to work harder because they believe it, and so I really love them because, they're part of the reason that I believe this will be successful.
Yeah, I think of it sort of like there is an analogy about a good wolf and an evil wolf that does battle in your mind, and I think of it, instead of good and evil, I think of it as failure and success. And then the question comes down to, well, which wolf wins? And it's the one that you feed. So you have to feed into your success and be around others that feed into your success, that see that in you, in order for it to come about and for it to happen. So it's very important to be around people who see you successful and know that you can do it.
Definitely.
100%. What does the future of Everlore look like? You said you guys have done a lot of work on phase 1. There's books out there.
We have them on Apple. We also have them on our website, manchildltd.com. We actually are reaching out to brick and mortar stores. I got to give a shout out to YadaQuest here in Cincinnati. They just purchased some of our books, and so guys, go to YadaQuest. But yeah, so we're going to be going county by county, trying to hit these stores. And so eventually you will see us in those stores as well.
Yep.
We've been working with a guy named Mr. Terry from Walmart, and we're actually going to be working to get scholarships for local high schoolers. And so we're going to be doing some events at Walmart called Everlore in-store events. So that's going to be happening. We're also in the process of if you believe it or not, my 12-year-old son and myself are trying to master Unreal Engine because we want to start getting together some animations and things like that. Now, that may not be for a while, but we're setting the stage. So that's something that we're doing. We did just release our second adventure module called Create and Core. And so that'll be something that over this week we'll be able to put online as well. So there's a lot that we have going on. Just, look for us because we're going to be out there.
Yeah, phase 2 is super exciting for us, even down to like potentially some music and audio clips that may be coming out in phase 2.
That's right.
So
awesome. Just incredible. It's very exciting. It's exciting because I know Everlore is just going to keep blowing up. I mean, the streaming show is amazing. People are going to start tuning in more and more. And like I said, the Cincinnati Critical Role, that's Everlore right now.
we appreciate it. Yeah.
You guys are just going to go like that. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having us. We enjoyed it.
Yeah, Nick, I really appreciate it. I was talking about we need those positive influences, and, you reaching out and saying, hey, guys, can we talk to you? That motivates us.
Yeah.
Because we need to make sure that we can provide quality for you as well as everybody else. So thank you very much for having us.